What's up, everyone? It's your boy back at you again with another Tommy Reads X-Men. Today, we are looking at X-Men number 32 from May 1967, written by Roy Thomas again, with art by Warner Roth. This one is called Beware the Juggernaut, My Son. Weird title. It's like Beware the Juggernaut, comma, my son. So somebody's like, yo, son, Juggernaut's in this one. So, spoilers, the Juggernaut is in this one. So, they tell you right on page 1, straight up, this is going to be a two-parter. So, strap yourselves in, folks, because we're here for part 1. We kick it off, not with a training montage this time. Nope, they out the X-Mansion, and they're actually at a surprise birthday party for Bobby, Iceman. He's turning 18, and his main squeeze, Zelda, is throwing him a party at the coffee shop. And she invited the X-Men. Now they're all having a good time, they're listening to poetry and drinking, cups of Joe or whatnot. And they end up starting to dance because suddenly there's a band playing music. And Scott ends up asking Jean to dance. Now, Bobby's there with his girl. Hank's there with his librarian girlfriend named Nora, I think her name was, or something like that. Anyway, and Scott's dancing with Jean, and Warren brings the girl from the last issue, named Candace, yeah. So they're all having a good time. Scott's finally making a move, from just pining away for Jean to actually dancing with her. So yay, Scott. But we cut to Professor X. Now this is where the meat and the potatoes of the story is here. Because what's he doing? For the past few issues, Papa Chuck has been running experiments. And he's saying, oh, it's about Factor 3, which we'll get to. Another tease, 4 months. Anyway, but he says, I'm working on something big. And we've all gotten slight teases maybe every third issue, every couple issues, that he has something behind this door in the basement of the mansion. And finally, we learn what it is. What he's been experimenting on for months. What he's been working in secret, not telling the X-Men about, and forbidding them to check on. What is it, you ask? He has his brother, the Juggernaut, who's been in a coma, prisoner, this whole time in the mansion. So the Juggernaut we have not seen since maybe issue 12 or 13. And I'll leave links to those issues of Tommy Reads X-Men down in the description below so you can check them out. But he was taken in by the authorities. Now, Charles just mentions to himself in his little bloop, bloop, bloop that the Juggernaut was in a coma and he signed for his body. He's like, I'll take it. And the cops were just like, oh, all right, well, here you go. You're his relative, so I guess you can sign for his comatose body and not take it to the hospital or nothing like that. But yeah, so he's been experimenting on the Juggernaut. He then goes into a flashback. In case you're new to this whole business of his half-brother, Kane Marco, and Charles Xavier. Half-brothers, not the best relationship. And when the Juggernaut got his powers, it was actually in a cave. They were fighting in a war. And all this blah 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 blah, and then he gets his powers, and the caves in, which is what caves do. And instead of being like, let me go get help, Papa Chuck well, I guess he's gone. All right, let me go live my best life and start the X-Men and whatnot. And literally, he says 10 years go by. So I guess the Juggernaut don't need food or Gatorade or anything like that or Happy Meals, and he's just forgot about him. 10 years go by, this guy finally comes back, and he's looking for Charles. He goes back to his childhood home, because that's where Charles set up the school, and he finds him. They tussle. It didn't go well for his half-brother, the Juggernaut, and now he's been keeping him prisoner. So he does this, and he's trying to spin it in his narrative of, he's doing the noble thing here. But I mean, keeping somebody kidnapped to the X-Men again. And they're still at the party. And all of a sudden, a biker gang busts through the coffee shop and starts a fight with them. Now, this biker gang, they are called the Satan's Saints. And this is all, we're getting all the info according to Zelda, who works at the coffee shop. Now, this fight is starting because apparently their leader, whose name I'll get to in a second. Their leader asked her out, and she's like, nah, I'm dating this other dude. And now he's coming to bust up his birthday party, which I guess she casually mentioned while she was turning the other guy down. And his name, you ready for it? The leader of the Satan Saints. His name is Rocky Rhodes. Rocky Rhodes. So it seems like Zelda had the scoop on Mr. Rocky Rhodes. Don't stop watching the video because of this. You get the X-Men versus these random bikers who have that classic 1950s Marlon Brando kind of biker look. I've never seen the wild one, but like I've seen pictures, and he's got like the little hat and leather jacket or whatever. Just like a 50s biker, you know what I'm saying? Not like Grease, which I think was in the 60s or 50s. I don't know. Anyway, he looked more Brando than Zuko. My point. So the X-Men are going to fight these bikers. They can't reveal they have powers, so they all do kind of weird things to stop him. Like Iceman, oops, I knocked over my drink, and then he like ices the ground. You know what I'm saying? And the Scott and Angel actually flip a table, and then the dude drives up it like a ramp, like he's Evel Knievel. And they didn't say where he landed, but I'm assuming he just flew right up into space. Jean uses her mental powers not to like knock out people, but to like knock their hats down. You know what? To like knock their hats down, so they're like, oh, I can't see, biker hats, no. And so that's what she does. And Hank like grabs onto a wall, because for being the smartest one, he's the quickest to like, oh, these are my powers. But he hangs onto a wall and like kicks him, and then he just gonna use the excuse of like, I had a whole bunch of adrenaline running through my system, and that's why I was able to do this incredible feat of strength, even though I play like a bookish weirdo. So X-Men fought some bikers. They took them out easily, so they got to, you know, put hands on people and actually get a rare W the first time they fight someone. Okay, now Papa Chuck, what he's up to, this whole experiment he's doing, is to put like a Cerebro-like thing on his head and take his comatose brother that he's been keeping prisoner, let's keep emphasizing this, and use it to like drain the evil Juggernaut force, the amulet that's powering him, out of his system so he can get his brother back, who he was kind of not great to begin with. They didn't have this, it's not like they were, you know, going on vacation together and watching Dick Van Dyke, like, Charles, it's coming on. And they would sit there by the TV or the radio or whatever. They didn't have that relationship, okay? It wasn't great. You can see it in the reviews. So he puts on the machine, confident it's gonna work. And it does not. It does not work, because something else is like ganging up with the Juggernaut's power, and it's too much for Papa Chuck. And he passes out. And that wakes up the Juggernaut. And he's like, oh, my brother Charles. All right, well, I guess he's out and I'm up, so I might as well go about my business. Cut to Scott and Jean in the park. Everybody's kind of gone their separate ways or whatever after the exciting biker fight. And Scott and Jean are walking in the park. And Scott's being emo Scott, and he tells Jean, like, oh, you know, my powers are really keeping me back from doing the things I wanted to do. And she's like, you know, I suspected as much. And then in his bloop bloop, he's like, I'm going to tell Jean I like her. And then Jean's thoughts are like, Scott's going to tell me he likes me. And he's like, I'll tell her later. And he gets cold feet. After all this is the perfect moment. He just backed down. He was like, you know, I don't know, Jeannie. But yeah, so that ends up, they go back to the mansion. Everybody else goes back to the mansion for something. And they end up, like, all the lights are out, suspicious as heck. And so automatically they get into costume. So that's good training. You know what I mean? Like, every time something's going on with the mansion, it's usually somebody trying to bust in here and, like, mess up our school. So they get into the thing, and they start looking around for Professor X, because he's nowhere to be found. Now, if you remember from way, way back, Papa Chuck done booby-trapped this house to Kevin McAllister-like levels, okay? So his Home Alone traps start going off. Like, they're going downstairs, and all of a sudden it becomes a ramp, and they fall. Now, who's doing this? I don't know. Probably the Juggernaut, because he seemed to have siphoned off some of Charles's power. But could just be the house defendant itself. For all we know. Like, he's got everything booby-trapped. I'm sure spikes were coming down. micro machines, which he had probably invented, were going to be laid out somewhere. But yeah, so the X-Men find the Juggernaut there in the mansion. And he's like, oh, it's round 2. And they're like, who is this again? And then before they can say, like, oh, yeah, you know, go over the whole backstory, which, you know, Charles explained while the Juggernaut was running towards them in the last issue he was in, he whoops their ass. Excuse me. Oops. What ends up happening, he knocks them out. They start to, and then he takes off. But before he could take off, he gets a little mental blast or mental, like, hey, who's this in my head? And it's somebody like, hey, we're from Factor 3. There's that tease, that one panel tease, and they're like, we helped you stop what Charles was going to do. And he's like, cool, cool. And then they're like, but you need to come join us in Europe. Now, they didn't say a specific part. And I'm no, you know, mapatician, no cartographer or whatever. I do like maps, like Bilbo. But I imagine they need a specific point of Europe to show up at. Like, meet me here, or at least a town, a city, whatever. Nothing. They're just like, Europe. And he's like, oh, well, no, I'm good. And he ends up heading towards New York. Now, the X-Men are recovered. They find Charles in almost a comatose-like state. They decide we have to go after the Juggernaut. End of part 1. Let me come back and hit you with some final thoughts on this. All right, final thoughts. So, this was about a 7 out of 10. I really enjoyed the action of this Ted-less issue. We didn't get our boy Ted in this one. That's okay. Jeannie and Scott seem like they're inch by inch moving closer to their relationship, which we know what's going to happen. But anyway, no Ted, so that had to take off a point. But it was decent action. The best part was peak Papa Chuck awfulness. Like, he had a dude kidnapped in the mansion. Like, once the X-Men find out this, I'm assuming, like any rational person, they'd be like, wait, what? Dude. And then he'll be like, shut up. And then they'll be like, okay, fall in line. But I just can't see him being like super okay with it if it does come out. Anyway, we'll see. We'll cover that. We'll get to that bridge later. The action, like I said, was good. Random fight versus the motorcycle gang was kind of weird, but also cool at the same time. It's rare that the X-Men just get the W real quick. And last but not least, I always like the Juggernaut. He's a cool character and stuff, so it's good to have him in another issue rather than these weird one-and-dones we've been doing. But is he the villain? Or is he just, you know, like, there's such a thing as a receipt. And Charles has a huge receipt coming his way. If somebody kept me in a comatose-like state, don't ever try that. And for months, under the ruse that they're going to help me, you know, I'm sorry. You're catching 1, 2, these manos. You know what I'm saying? Like, you getting hands for sure. Your whole team's getting it. He wasn't so much being the villain as, you know, Charles got what it was coming to him. You know what I'm saying? Anyway, 7 out of 10. If you like what you're seeing, if you enjoyed this issue, if this is your first time visiting, welcome. If this is your 15th, 20th time checking out Tommy Reads X-Men or anything on the Tommy Love Stuff channel, I appreciate your support. Welcome as well. So hit that like and subscribe button. That'd be awesome. Hit the bell notifications in the corners. Got a lot of great things on the channel. If you like food reviews, if you like comic book reviews, if you like pop culture in general, this is the channel for you. So make sure you spread the word about the channel. It'd be greatly appreciated. All right, later.
3, 2, 1. Time's up.
Y'all still watching? Cool.